What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Prophecy Misfits Podcast, and this is episode 349. Project 2026. We got an update when it comes to the latest project coming from the Heritage Foundation, the ones who started the Project 2025 stuff that we're seeing as being oh so beneficial to the United States right now. But we'll talk about that as well with a bunch of other stuff. So welcome in. Glad to be back. Yes, we took a break there for a week. I ended up moving, and glad to be out of the place that I was in before, to say the least. Yeah, some of you guys know that I was trying to move and get out of the place I was in for over a year. For many reasons. It was a bad place to live. It was doing damage to not only my sanity, because of the management that was there, but also the neighbors that I was surrounded in. I was in an apartment then. And but it was also doing damage to my health as well. And when I cleaned out the place and I was finishing up the move and everything like that, I noticed that there was black mold that was embedded in the windows, in the walls. You could see it coming out of the outlets and everything like that. It had a massive cockroach infestation. The entire complex is completely infested with cockroaches, and there was black mold coming out of the air ducts, and there was dust, black, like almost like a filmy dust stuff that you could wipe it up, and it had like a moistness to it. It was bad. They just don't take care of the place. There's only so much I can do, but I finally managed to get out. The Lord blessed me with a wonderful place. I'm no longer in an apartment, so everything is quiet, and everything is clean and healthy, and I give all the glory to the Lord for that. I'm so grateful for the Lord. So begins a recovery of health, sanity, and just in actually being able to enjoy a place where I live. And so yeah, that's where we're at now. So a lot of you guys didn't know the situation I was in. I just didn't necessarily want to broadcast it, but yeah, that was something I was working through. Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord, I'm out. So but we're here now, and we got plenty to talk about. We took a week-long break, and definitely glad that we're back on, and everything is rolling like usual for us. So, yeah, this is what we do on Tuesdays and Saturdays. Thank you guys for joining me, and welcome in. If you're brand new, thank you for being here. We get together, and we talk about the crazy things that are happening around the world right now. These are stepping stones, stepping stones towards prophetic events that will happen post-rapture into the day of the Lord. And so we're called to be watchmen. We're called to watch for these things, and that's what we do. And tonight, Project 2026, we're going to be going over the Heritage Foundation stuff regarding Project 2026. If you're not aware of the things that are happening behind the scenes, it reads like, oh, this is good. You know, we're going back to 1950s American dream type of thing. But if you do know what's going on behind the scenes, it reads like a dystopian horror novel. So we'll go through some of that stuff. We also got some other information when it comes to Trump blocking documents for the J6 PSYOP situation. We'll go over that. Larry Fink is now back involved with the Ukraine situation, along with Jared Kushner. He's joined in with that discussion as well. We also got some updates when it comes to tourists entering into the United States. You're basically going to need to give everything but your left kidney. You have 2 kidneys, right? I think that's 2 kidneys. Yeah, 1 liver, 2 kidneys. That's right. But yeah, you're going to have to give a lot of stuff if you want to come in. A bunch of updates on the immigration stuff. We got a major Palantir update with many different contracts and things going on in regards to that. GenAI.mil, basically the integration of artificial intelligence into the military, is launched, and we're heading into it, and some other stuff as well. So we got plenty of things to talk about. So how y'all doing? You guys doing good in here? Hopefully everybody got the memo that we're back and whatnot. I'm sure we'll have some people missing that'll be coming in going, oh no, I forgot that it was going on. Yeah. All right. So we're going to go ahead and get into housekeeping.
Housekeeping?
No, thank you. Sleeping.
Housekeeping?
All right, so for housekeeping, usual spiel, if you guys can, like, share, subscribe, get this out to as many people as you can. It's not about views, not about butts and seats, but it is about getting the warning out to people and getting people to Jesus. And that's the whole reason why we do this. That is our goal. If that's not what we're doing it for, then why are we doing this at all? And liking, sharing, and subscribing does help. It helps with the algorithm. We can reach some new people. We can give them the gospel of Jesus Christ and hopefully give them some warning about what's going on, give them some information about the things happening right now, and hopefully it'll help with their witnessing, or if they don't know the Lord, hopefully they'll receive salvation through Jesus. So if you guys can do me a solid and like, share, subscribe, certainly appreciate it. Also, make sure you guys follow Rumble and Telegram. Those are my backup channels. If I get booted off YouTube, I'll be backup live streaming over on Rumble. And then Telegram, post updates, announcements, and other little things here and there that I can't necessarily put in video format. So make sure you guys go ahead and follow over there. But if you don't like Rumble and you don't like Telegram, that's cool. Just make sure you bookmark the WretchedWatchmen.com website. That's your one-stop shop to stay up to date on everything that's going on in the world of Wretched Watchmen. You'll find the latest podcasts. You'll find the live streams. The announcements are there. You guys did good this time. Usually when we take breaks, I get flooded with a whole bunch of people asking why there's no shows, where I'm at, and stuff like that. Most of you seem to realize that if you just go to the website, you'll see what's going on with that. I had a couple. There was still a couple that were confused and contacted me. I was like, where are you? Where's your show? Like, just go to the website. I say it every week. Just go to the website. So you guys are doing good on that. But yeah, you'll find everything that you need to on the website. So make sure you guys go ahead and bookmark that. If you guys like to support this channel and what I got going on, I got donation links down below. CashApp, Venmo, and GiveSendGo. This channel is now monetized. I don't make anything from ads, views, or anything like that. It runs solely off of your guys' generous donations. So if you guys like to support this channel and what I got going on, I got donation links down below. Cash App, Venmo, GiveSendGo. Again, thank you guys for your support and your blessings. The Lord got me out of the place I was in, got me into this place. But part of the reason why that helps, why that worked, was because you guys and your generous donations and whatnot helped me get out of a very bad place and into a place that's healthy and clean. So I thank you guys for that as well. So you guys are a blessing. You guys make all of this run. You make everything happen over here. And I can't thank you enough. You guys are incredible. Truly. Thank you guys so much. Also, a couple of things. Fridays, we got the Wretched recaps that we do. These are just about a 20-minute video upload. They've been a little longer the past two because of the break. I've tried to put in as much as I could, but they're about 20 minutes. We go over about 5 or 6 different topics that happened during the past weeks. Make sure you guys tune in on Fridays for those videos. It's not a live stream, so you don't have to be here at a certain time. They're on every Friday. So make sure you guys check those out. Also, if you sent me an email in the past 10 days, you probably have not received a response from me, because my email has been priority 100 out of 100. I have not really been checking my email inbox. I've been so busy with other things. This coming week, I should be able to start replying back to those emails. So if you're sitting there and you feel like I'm ignoring you, I'm not ignoring you. I just didn't have time the past week. So I'll get to your emails this week. Please be patient with me as we try and get back to normalcy. All right. Thank you. Good stuff. All right. It is Saturday. We missed last Saturday, but it is Saturday, and that means we got ourselves the Wretched Weather Report. So let's get into it.
Everybody got their fancy hats? Let's go!
All right, so the Wretched Weather Report, what we do is we keep track of the trends of what's going on when it comes to natural events. Things like earthquakes and volcanoes, hurricanes, tsunamis, storms, floodings, tornadoes, and all that type of stuff. We know that these natural events are going to increase in size and frequency as we get closer and into the day of the Lord. And we understand that it is a combination of both God stirring things up for the time that we're in, as well as man-made catastrophes that we have to pay consequences for, and because of the things that they're doing. But yeah, we just like to keep track of what's going on, and it's always worth just paying attention. These are often overlooked. We don't necessarily need to spend that much time on it, but it is, I think, important to go over some of these things. So this past week. When it comes to what is going on with earthquakes, we have quite a few, and we have a couple big ones up in here. So this past week with earthquakes, 5.5 magnitude and up. We got a 5.5 in the Drake Passage. If you don't know Drake Passage, it's the area of water that is between South America and the Antarctica. Then there was a 5.5 in Jose Maria Moros, Mexico. Then there was a 7.0 in Haines Junction, Canada. I was going to say Canada. That's usually what I call it. But yeah, 7.0 in Haines Junction, Canada, which is not even the biggest one of this past week. There's a couple of monsters this past week. But yeah, 7.0 in Canada. Then there's a 5.6 in Port Olry, Vanuatu. 5.6 in Severodvinsk, Russia. 5.9 in Haines Junction, Canada, which is a follow-up aftershock from the 7.0. There's a bunch of smaller aftershocks as well. The big one of the week was a 7.5. It was initially 7.6, but downgraded to 7.5 in Misawa, Japan. And then there's been a ton of aftershocks, smaller ones, larger ones. We got a bunch of them listed here. With a 5.5, and then there's a 5.5 in Hachinohe, Japan, a 5.5 in South Sandwich Islands, 5.8 in Hachinohe, Japan, a 6.6 in Hachinohe, Japan, 5.6 in Hachinohe, Japan, a 5.5 in Aratoka, Colombia, and then a 5.7, a 6.7, and a 5.5 in Hachinohe, Japan as well, and then a 5.5 in the Rat Islands, Alaska. So Japan got hit pretty hard with several large earthquakes and a bunch of aftershocks. And Canada also got a big one as well. But that was in a region where there's not many people. It's just kind of in the middle of the wilderness. So praise the Lord for that. As far as volcanoes, we got 44 volcanoes actively erupting around the world right now. We're sitting at the very bottom of our usual global average that we sit at. We got 6 in North America, 6 in South America, 2 in Europe, 2 in Antarctica, 3 in Africa, 17 in Asia, and 8 in Oceania. So that's what we're looking like with earthquakes and volcanoes. Getting back to those earthquakes, though, a little bit more information on them. There's the 7.5 magnitude earthquake that strikes off Japan, triggering a tsunami on the country's northern coast. So the 7.5 did, in fact, bring a tsunami with it. This is a powerful earthquake struck off northern Japan late Monday, local time, triggering a tsunami of up to 28 inches in the Pacific Coast communities. The Japanese meteorological agency said. There we go. The agency reported that the quake's magnitude is 7.5, down from its early estimate of 7.6. The quake struck about noon in the Pacific Ocean region, 50 miles off the coast of Aomori and northernmost of Japan's Honshu Island. And let's see here. Where's that? Where's the information I was looking for? I think it's down here. Yeah, right here. So it says the Fire and Disaster Management Agency said 23 people were injured, including one seriously. Most of the victims were hit by falling objects, the NHK reported, adding that several people were injured in a hotel in Hachinohe, and a man in Tohoku was slightly hurt when he fell into a hole. So praise the Lord that nobody died from this. Nobody was killed from this earthquake. And obviously there was 23 people who were injured. So pray for quick recovery on that. And as far as damage goes, pray that there's no major damage and they can just go ahead and clean things up and get back to life as it is. So there's an update on that. We also have this. This is the Canadian one. 7.0 quake on Saturday was one of Canada's strongest on record. Saturday's earthquake in Yukon was one of Canada's strongest quake on record. It says a powerful earthquake rattled northwestern Canada on Saturday afternoon, making the event one of the country's strongest quakes on record. The magnitude 7.0 struck the Yukon Territory about 1:41 local time, with the epicenter around west of Whitehorse. So those who are in Canada probably have a better idea of where this region is on that. The USGS reported at least 33 aftershocks within 3 hours of the main earthquake, with the largest being a magnitude 5.1. There's no immediate reports of damage, though numerous residents of Whitehorse reported on social media that they felt rattling. Anybody who watches me feel this thing? I'm curious. If you guys felt this, let me know, because I know I got a lot of Canadians that watch. But we can see here that this was tied third for the strongest in Canadian earthquake history right here with a 7.0. The other ones being a 7.3 and then just a 7.3 plus because that was back when they weren't really recording things. So the earth is definitely a rockin' right now. We tend to go through ups and downs with earthquakes, with the amount and size and everything like that, but things are definitely moving around here. And I always like to just put it in the perspective of just wait. When we're taken out of here and this earth is the restrainer is gone and this earth is starting to get back into Old Testament style things. Just imagine what's going to be happening with the earthquakes, the tectonic shifts, volcanoes going off and stuff. It's something that we definitely don't want to be here for. It's going to be catastrophic. I always put it in the perspective of that. Then we also have this. It says catastrophic Pacific Northwest floods leave 100,000 facing evacuation. The flooding levels were looking at a potentially historic in nature. Bob Ferguson said Thursday afternoon, urging people to listen to official advice on following evacuation orders. So anybody in the Washington region having to deal with this as well? I always like to hear from you guys if you guys are dealing with this stuff. It says a state of emergency has been declared and tens of thousands of people have been ordered to leave their homes in western Washington after historic rain left rivers at record levels across the state. Washington Governor Bob Ferguson begged residents to follow the evacuation orders. This situation is extremely unpredictable, Ferguson said at a news conference on Thursday afternoon. The flooding levels are looking at potentially historic in nature. So more than 5 million people. Why does it do that? More than 5 million people were under flood alerts Thursday morning, including in parts of Montana and a small part of Idaho. 10 to 18 inches of rain have fallen over the Cascade and Olympic mountain ranges in the last 72 hours, and it looks like 100,000 people could face evacuation orders. So, oh man, the flooding continues. This has been a year of flooding. I know we've covered a lot of the flooding stuff around that's been happening around the world right now. This past year, there's just been a crazy ton amount. From Indonesia to China to Russia, which is odd that Russia's getting flooding, to Australia was getting some flooding, Japan was getting flooding, and just places all over the place. I can't even remember all of them, but we got our own flooding that's happening here too, that we're seeing in the United States region. Canada's got some flooding too. I saw reports a couple days ago that they had to shut down multiple highways, like 8 or 9 highways, because of the amount of flooding that's happening there. So where's all this water coming from? Where is it coming from? But yeah, so lots of flooding. So pray for those in Washington. If you are in that region, did you have to deal with this, or are you dealing with this now? Let me know. I'd like to see what's going on there. All right. And that is what we got when it comes to the wretched weather reports. I'm having to relearn where to look because I'm so used to my camera being over here, but now I have it here and it's throwing me off. So I apologize if I keep looking over in this direction. It's just a habit. All right. Yeah, a lot of people are dealing with snow and stuff like that. All right, let's go ahead and get into the main stuff that we've got for today. And we're going to start with this. Start off with a PSYOP, shall we? Because there's nothing more fun than dealing with PSYOPs, because that's like the number one thing that we're dealing with on this channel right now. But we got Trump asserts executive privilege to thwart January 6th lawsuit. The White House said records sought in Capitol riot litigation are clearly constitutionally protected. This is President Trump has asserted executive privilege to prevent courtroom adversaries from accessing evidence in a long-running lawsuit that accuses him of stoking violence at the Capitol on January 6, 2021. The Justice Department disclosed Trump's secrecy claim Wednesday in a hearing related to the 5-year-old lawsuit brought by police officers injured in attempting to repel the violent mob that day. The officers said that Trump's incendiary remarks to a crowd of supporters and his direction that they would march in the Capitol fueled a riot that nearly derailed the transfer of power from Trump to Joe Biden and left 140 officers injured. Okay, so we're not going to go through the whole history of it. Most of you guys around this channel have know what this whole thing anyways, but this is still setting a precedent for things that are going forward. So that's why I think it's important to talk about this. As we know, the January 6th Capitol situation, that was clearly a psyop, and it was orchestrated in order to fuel the political regime or the political paradigm and transfer and get ready for the next Trump regime that would happen after Biden. Of course, we can go through the list of events. You had Trump come in, built up this entire cult following, and then there was the orchestrated situation with the quote unquote stolen election, which we know they're just elections. So if there is a quote unquote publicly rigged election, we know that that is theater designed to elicit some type of response from us, a psychological response. And so that whole situation with the 2020 thing obviously was there to fuel and divide the political paradigm even further. Then we had the Capitol situation with January 6th, where there was obviously actors planted on the outside and on the inside in order to coordinate this. The megaphone to get everything riled up and going, of course, was Trump. We went over, and we do know that there was the Flynn brothers. We know that Michael Flynn was on the outside. His brother Charles was on the inside. They were orchestrating the event, and everything that occurred in there was obviously built to ignite things further to go forward, which also set a precedent for a future, not a future back then, it's already happened now, ruling by the Supreme Court, which basically established that when a president is acting in duty capacity, he's basically exempt from all fault, from all illegal conduct and whatnot. And so that's one of the precedents that's very important that we remember that came from January 6th, is the Supreme Court basically said, well, the president can do whatever they want as long as it's in the duty of being a president. And so that was set after this situation. So now, because of that, we have this situation where, because police officers who I would say probably didn't know the situation was happening, they were just there because we know that not everybody involved with these things is aware of what's going on. They were just doing their jobs. These officers were injured in the situation, and they're trying to get paid for their damages that was done against Trump for inciting the things. And so what does Trump do? He uses that Supreme Court order and says, well, because I was acting in the duty of president at the time, and because of the orders that was giving, they were constitutionally bound. So any evidence that you're trying to get on this, I'm not going to allow you to get. And so that's why he's asserting his executive privilege. He's blocking evidence that would show that he was clearly involved with this, and he's now allowed to do that because of the Supreme Court ruling that happened because of this event in itself. And so this is just another stage-setting event that is basically showing that Trump is building this authoritarian regime right in front of our very eyes right now, with the backing of the Supreme Court that happened a few years ago. We went over that when that was first established. So basically he's blocking more evidence from coming forward on this situation. You guys following along? I hope that you're following along. And it goes on to say it's unclear precisely which records Trump is attempting to keep out of the hands of the plaintiffs in the January 6th lawsuit. I saw somewhere else that they said that it's roughly 4,000 documents that he is blocking. I don't necessarily know if that's verified or not. but they said it's roughly about 4,000. It says, however, a White House spokesperson confirmed Wednesday that the president has decided to fight disclosure of some materials subpoenaed from the National Archives and Records Administration last year. The president asserted executive privilege over the discovery requests in the case because the overly broad requests demanded documents that were either presidential communications or communications among the president's staff that are clearly constitutionally protected from discovery. I don't know. Conversations happening between Trump and the Flynn brothers, perhaps? I don't know. I don't know if that's for sure in the documents or not. I'm just saying it wouldn't surprise me because that would fit under those qualifications. It says attorneys for the police officers have complained about protracted delays in accessing White House records from Trump's first term, now in the custody of the National Archives. So basically, Trump is just fighting them every step of the way to get any evidence that they are allowed to under our justice system, which we don't really have a justice system anymore. But it says Trump initially fought efforts by Congress to access his records, taking the battle all the way to the Supreme Court, which let stand a lower court ruling permitting the archives to turn over the records, but a sitting president's view of executive privilege is given far more weight than former presidents. And that is because, as we talked about before, the ruling that the Supreme Court gave. This is in response to the lawsuit from police officers and other suits, including one from the Democratic lawmakers. Trump claimed he was immune from liability because he was speaking and acting in his official capacity as president on January 6th. His lawyers have also argued that his statements at the ellipse were protected by the First Amendment and can't result in liability. That immune from liability right there because of official capacity is because of that ruling. I remember when that ruling first came out, I was talking about how this is setting up an authoritarian regime, basically saying the Supreme Court has ruled that Trump can do whatever he wants as long as it's declared in the capacity of being official duty of a president. And basically he's got immunity all the way around. And it's, again, and you compare that, or you combine that with, this was several years ago. I don't remember exactly when it was, but it was, I think, during his first term or somewhere around there. He came out and said that, I could go and shoot somebody in the middle of the street and I could get away with it and people would still support me. And you combine that with the Supreme Court ruling and everything that we're seeing right now, and it's proving to be factually correct. Everything that Trump does, all these things that he's doing are completely getting swept under the rug, and people are still supporting him no matter what, mainly from the churches and the prophecy community and whatnot, that manage to ignore all the bad stuff and continue to, I don't know how you can continue to do it, but they continue to point back to events that are happening during the Biden administration, and they're still continuing to harp on those while ignoring everything that's going on in the current time frame that we're seeing when it comes to the downfall of this country, which will play a part prophetically in some way, shape, or form. I'm not even going to sit here and speculate on how it will, but we do know it'll have repercussions for the future. And that's why it's so important that we abide by what the Bible specifically tells us. I was listening to Pastor Solwold, Jeff, last night, and he was going over Thessalonians, and it's talking about, being a lover of the truth, seeking the truth, putting the truth above all else. And unfortunately, the modern church and the prophecy community that's more focused on selling books and going on prophecy cruises and being stars in their own conferences and stuff like that are more interested in not seeking the truth and loving the truth and living for the truth and whatnot. They're more interested in going with whatever direction allows them to live the lifestyle that they want to live now, according to their own political leanings, according to their own financial leanings, according to whatever social status that they have. And that's why it's so important that no matter what, it doesn't matter what opposition you face, you will lose relationships, you will lose friendships and families. But the fact is this is not about choosing a side politically. This is not about choosing something to that aligns with your own personal beliefs. This has to do with finding the evidence of the truth, standing by it, and no matter what. And that is what the scripture specifically tells us to do in Thessalonians. And many people claim that that's what they're doing. And then the next sentence that comes out of their mouth has nothing to do with the truth, but everything to do with their own personal desires that they're trying to live out in their life. And it's not right. It's not right. We need to make sure that no matter what, our focus is living for the truth. What is the truth? Who is the Spirit of truth? Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ is the Spirit of truth. He is the truth. His word is the truth. And it's becoming very hard to find the truth nowadays because we're living in the days of deception, which we know that was going to be happening as well. But still, we need to make sure that we are seeking the truth first above all else. Again, when we go over stuff like this, I still get emails and comments and stuff like that. You're just bashing Trump. This has nothing to do with bashing Trump. This has to do, he's a pawn in all of this. I hope people realize that. He has no control. He has no say. He's on a leash. He has to do what he's supposed to do. But the thing is we're not sitting here bashing Trump. We are simply seeking the truth of what is happening in today's day and age. You know, you go back a few years, what were we talking about on this channel? All of the crazy stuff that was happening with the Biden administration and the alphabet agendas and all the crazy stuff that was happening there, because that's what was going on in that day and age. So we have now transferred over to the next step. And so that's why we're focusing on this. But the problem is most of the church is living in the past. Why? Because they hitched their wagon to Trump, pounding their fists on their pulpits, wrecking any relationship with their families by saying, you have to vote. You have to vote for Trump. You have to support this guy. You have to do this, with many of them hitching salvation to it, like Jack Hibbs and whatnot. We can't live that way. That's not the truth. That's not seeking the truth. And in some case, that's altering the gospel, which is heresy. Yes, Jack Hibbs preached heresy. And the latest thing that I've seen Jack Hibbs has said that if you don't support Israel, then all of a sudden you lose your salvation as well. You're not a true Christian if you don't do that, which we know that that's not true. Yes, we're called to support God's people and God's land, but that's not hitched to salvation. So again, he's adding more onto it. That's a cult in itself. We're not even going to get into that. But Jack Hibbs is clearly somebody who's not seeking the truth. He's not preaching the truth. The people who follow him and support that aren't doing it either. And there's thousands and thousands of other pastors that are doing the same thing, but they're living in the past because of their own personal choices that is not based upon the truth. They're not living out Thessalonians like Paul told us to do. So no, we're not here to do political bashing. We are here to stand by the truth, seek the truth, and find it according to what the Lord has called us to do. And so we need to make sure that is our focus. A little bit of a rambling point there. I wasn't planning on going on that, but sometimes you just got to do it. So, okay. And y'all are talking about fried Cheetos in the chat. There we go. I don't even know how you would fry it. You know what? I don't want to know. Let's move on, shall we? Let's do this. All right. Next up, BlackRock's Larry Fink joins Trump's team, talks to rebuild Ukraine. So, if you guys remember, we talked about this. This was, when did the Ukraine war, it's been what, 4 years, 5 years? That was 2021, right? I can't even remember when this thing started. There's people that still think that this is a real war. That's crazy. Russia would have crushed them years ago if this was a legit war. Anyways, that's beside the point. When this thing first started, it was a couple months after that, we found out that Larry Fink was basically leading the charge when it comes to rebuilding Ukraine after all this stuff, because they were going for the Ukraine 2030 thing. They were going to make it a technocratic country. 22. Okay. So 2022. Okay. Thank you. But they're going to make it a technocratic country. We shared that video that was, it was released by the cybersecurity head dude in Ukraine at that time. You can still find the video on YouTube. I've got stuff from years ago too that you guys can go check that out if you want to. But they basically all the smart city stuff, they were going to turn Ukraine into like a smart hub, like a smart country because of this thing. And that just kind of fell off the table there. I don't know if it was ever removed entirely as an option, but it just kind of went away there for a while and things shifted. That's why it's always important to remember when it comes to the geopolitical stuff. We know not everything is as it seems, and just because they present an option doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to be the option. Things change all the time. Things get messy. People don't do what they're supposed to do, and so on and so forth. But we know that Larry Fink was one of the main people behind that. He was going to help finance it because BlackRock is like Satan's venture capital fund. Honestly, with what's going on. And then Larry Fink just kind of disappeared from the Ukraine situation for several years, but he's back. And so we got this. It says BlackRock's Larry Fink joins Trump team to talks to rebuild Ukraine. This is BlackRock BlackRock Inc. Chief Executive, there we go, Larry Fink, is back in the conversation around rebuilding Ukraine, this time with the Trump administration. Fink's role in the talks on Ukraine's future became public on Wednesday when Zelensky sent out a social media post saying he had joined Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, which we know is George Soros's boy, and Jared Kushner for discussions around rebuilding the country's economy. Keep in mind, Jared Kushner hasn't really been involved with the Ukraine situation. He's more of a Middle East guy. And Jared Kushner does not have an official role in the administration now, but now all of a sudden he's jumped on board with Ukraine. So this might be worth keeping an eye on what they're trying to set up with this when you have Fink and Kushner now coming on board with this. It's something to pay attention to. It says, for discussion, Jared Kushner for discussions around rebuilding the country's economy. In fact, this could be considered the first meeting of the group that will work on a document concerning reconstruction and economic recovery of Ukraine, Zelensky wrote. We've heard that before in the past. We'll see if anything comes of it. But again, with Fink and Kushner on board now, things might get a little interesting on that. So worth paying attention to. This is Envoy Steve Witkoff, a real estate developer and longtime friend of Trump, had led conversations with Vladimir Putin. Army Secretary Dan Driscoll recently engaged with the Ukrainian side on a new peace plan that surfaced last month. Kushner, who had stayed on the sidelines in the early months of Trump's second term, has played a more public role in recent months in talks around the Middle East and Ukraine. So a lot of talk going on with that, and we'll see what happens. Again, when it comes to the geopolitical situation, we got to understand most people out there, whether it's the mainstream media, whether it's podcast people, whether it's just news stations, and honestly, most of the prophecy community and whatnot are still talking like the United States is at war with Russia and at war with China, and they don't like each other and they don't get along, and they're against each other on these types of things and whatnot. But the problem is, again, if you don't seek the truth and you don't understand what's going on with Trump and the role that he plays and who he's connected to, you will fall in line with the modern day narrative of, well, Trump's at war with Russia and China and they don't like each other and they're trying to stop this and they're trying to do that and stuff. But if you seek what's going on and you seek the things that are happening in the background and you understand where Trump actually sits in line with people like Xi and Putin, you'll understand that they're all friends, they're all buddy-buddy, and they're all controlled by the same people above them. So they're not actually at war. They use war in order to develop the next stage for what they're trying to implement for this one world system. And again, that's why it's important that we seek the truth. So we don't follow along with the narrative that they want us to because we have to support Trump, but we follow along with what is really going on behind the scenes. Now, again, we don't have all the details. We don't know everything. Things could take a hard left, hard right. We don't know. But we have a better understanding of what's going on, and we can look at the geopolitical situation in a much more detailed way, and we can understand some of the moves that they're making when it comes to building the system make a lot more sense. Because there's still people out there going, well, Trump's against the globalists. Why is he doing all this AI stuff? I can't figure it out. There must be something going on there. For those of us who do know what's going on, we sit there and go, that makes perfect sense. And so that's why we need to do that. Again, I'm on a rant thing. I got to stop doing that. But Larry Fink and Jared Kushner back at the table when it comes to rebuilding Ukraine. Let's see what happens. from here. All right, moving on. So let's take a look at what's going on here. It says tourists from 42 countries will have to submit 5 years of social media history to enter the United States under Trump's plan. This was December 10th. This came out. It says the Trump administration is proposing to ask visitors from several dozen nations that enjoy visa-free travel to the U.S. to submit additional personal information before entering the country, including 5 years of their social media history, the Department of Homeland Security said in a notice this week. Citizens of 42 countries enrolled in the visa waiver program can generally come to the U.S. for up to 90 days for tourism or business travel without needing to apply for a visa at an American embassy or consulate, process that can take several months or even years. The list of countries in the visa waiver program include many European nations like the United Kingdom, Germany, and France, as well as some U.S. allies around the world, including Australia, Israel, Japan, New Zealand, and South Korea. Says while citizens of these nations typically don't need visas to travel to the United States, they still have to submit an application online during a process known as the Electronic System for Travel Authorization, or the ESTA, before entering the country. The Trump administration is proposing to overhaul the ESTA system, mainly to transform it into a mobile-only process. The plan would require applicants to share additional information about themselves and their relatives, according to a notice posted in the Federal Government Journal of Regulations by Customs and Border Protection, a branch of DHS. The notice said CBP plans to ask visa waiver travelers to share their social media history for the past 5 years, emails that they have used for the past 10 years, and the personal information of immediate family members, including phone numbers and residences. The submission of social media history from the last 5 years will now be mandatory requirement under the proposal, according to the notice. And so this is a situation of problem, reaction, solution. And this is one of the things that we were screaming from the mountaintops from the very beginning. When the Trump administration was setting up in the 2024 campaign, we were screaming from the mountaintops, this immigration thing, they are going to use it in order to bring in an authoritarian style law system. They're going to do it to bring in a nationalized combination military and police force, and they're going to use it to bring in the surveillance state, an absolutely dystopian surveillance state. What you are witnessing right now is the repercussions of that exact thing. Any tourists, any travelers that wants to come in, even if they're from allied countries, if you want to come here, you're going to have to start giving every ounce of your information so they can apply it to their database and have you within their tech system, their technocracy system. And sure enough, we're starting to see it just here. We knew that this was this social media thing was on its way. We were talking about this either earlier in the year. I think it was earlier this year, in springtime, maybe somewhere around there. They announced that they're going to start requiring social media history in order to enter into the United States, and now it's officially mandatory. So they've been working on it. So this is a situation of problem, reaction, solution. And if you want to travel here, you're going to have to start giving a lot of information to do it. Not only is this going to feed into the technocracy system, but now this is also going to have effect on basically isolating this country from other countries. And you're going to start seeing economic hits from it, because less tourism in the United States, even though most of us find them annoying when they're just to be honest, but less tourism is obviously going to have a hit on economic status as well. So there's multiple factors to this. This is while the State Department has moved to scrutinize visa applicants overseas more heavily. Some of the changes affect people already in the United States who are applying to stay in the country legally through applications for asylum, green cards, or American citizenship. So if you're somebody that's already here, already has a visa, and you're going for your citizenship or your green card, you're going to have to play ball with this as well. Otherwise, they'll kick you out of the country. It says U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services have instructed officials to investigate the social media history of several classes of immigrants, including for views and activities deemed to be anti-American. Hang on to that. It has also directed educators to more intensely probe the good moral character of legal immigrants requesting United States citizenship. Let's tackle the first one first about Views and activities deemed to be anti-American. Do you guys remember I made it a big deal. I talked about it. I said, make sure that you understand this document and you understand it very well, because many of the things that are coming are going to fall in line with it. And that was the NSPM 7 document that Trump brought in. It was a national security policy. It's not an executive order. Executive orders for day-to-day stuff within the government. National security policy is something that immediately goes into effect on the spot for all law enforcement agencies. That's everywhere from DHS to Border Patrol to ICE to even local police and whatnot. The anti-American stance that they're making reference to in this falls in line with the NSPS 7, because they have broad language in there that says if the law enforcement deems you to be anti-American, have any views that are anti-American in any way, you will be deemed a domestic terrorist. So what they're talking about is they're going to start doing this, and not only do you have to play ball, but if they find something that they don't like, they will immediately deem you as a domestic terrorist, which will allow them to be Johnny on the spot and arrest and detain whoever that is, even if they're just a tourist trying to get in and they have a different view of culture. That would be anti-American. They could be arrested for doing it. So that's why it's important that we remember that document. I have a video on that of that on my channel. If you haven't seen it, or you need to re-up your information on it, go check it out. It's the NSPM 7 video. The second part of this is educators to intensely probe the good moral character of legal immigrants requesting U.S. citizenship. Who determines what good moral character is? Obviously, it's not the set standard that good moral character that God has given us. It's clearly not based on that. So who is doing this? What is deemed good moral character? And this is something that could be used, and it could be abused in so many different ways. I can't even begin to think in that direction of who classifies you as good moral character based upon whose moral character, because they're obviously not going based on God's. So this is pretty interesting. So this is going to definitely play an effect in many ways when it comes to technocracy, when it comes to economic tourism, and when it comes to isolation of our country from the rest of the world. Stacking on top of that, because it doesn't end there, it says submit social media, DNA, and IP address to enter the United States. New notice could affect travelers from over 40 countries. This is the same notice. They're just giving us a little bit more information. It says foreign visitors who are part of America's visa waiver program may soon need to provide their social media history, telephone numbers, and email addresses used, and even biometrics like DNA and iris scans. So, to enter the United States, according to the new notice by Customs Border Protection, so on and so forth. So you'll notice we have skipped from just simply facial recognition and iris scans to full-on DNA collection. We always talk about how if you give an inch, they take a mile. They've taken 5 miles with this one. When you hand over something, it's just a facial scan. Whatever, it's fine. It's for national security. It's fine, whatever. Now it's facial scan, iris scan, and DNA collection. They're full on. If you want to come into the United States, even for a week as a tourist, you'll have to give up your social media. You have to give up your email addresses. You have to give up your family information, and you'll have to give your DNA in order to tour this country. As part of its screening process, the U.S. will require social media history and other high-value data fields for travelers who can enter the country without a visa. This would affect visitors from 42 countries who are allowed to stay in the United States for up to 90 days without a visa and are screened through an electronic system known as ESTA. This comes days after a planned travel ban for nearly 30 countries after 2 National Guard members were shot dead in Washington. Problem, reaction, solution. You start sending out National Guard into the country, something bad happens like this, which there's a lot of questions regarding that. We went over that in detail a couple weeks ago. Go check that out. Go check that out if you want to. A lot of suspicious stuff on that. Questions we probably won't get answers to, but it's still worth noting. And then a repercussion of that. Well, if you want to visit this country, you're going to have to give your DNA to do it. It says here's a full list of items that foreign visitors who are part of the visa waiver program would need to submit as per the official document by the U.S. Customs and Border Protection. It says social media history for the last 5 years, telephone numbers used in the last 5 years, email addresses used in the last 10 years, IP addresses and metadata from electronically submitted photos, family member names, which is parent, spouse, sibling, and children, family member telephone numbers used in the last 5 years, family member dates of birth, family member places of birth, family member residences, biometrics, fingerprint, DNA, and iris scan, business telephone numbers used in the last 5 years, and business email addresses used in the last 10 years. If you want to visit this country, you have to give them all of that to come and visit this country. You know, and I know this isn't the rule on other countries out there in the world and stuff like that, but you know, I've been asked the question quite a few times. You know, it's like, why don't you do some traveling? Why don't you go see the world and stuff like that? Well, one, there's really not much I really want to go and see right now with how fast this world is deteriorating. I'm comfortable right where I'm at. Two, the hoops that you have to jump through to not only get into another country to visit, but then even if you are a U.S. citizen coming back, you got to jump through massive hoops even to try and get back into your own country if you are a U.S. citizen. I have no interest in dealing with all that stuff. This is only going to make things worse coming from here. And three, you know, why don't you go and see the world and stuff like that? I'll be able to see the entire world in a day when I got my new body and the Lord has burned this one down to the ground and has rebuilt it to something new and much more beautiful. And I'm fine with that. Good things come to those who wait. That's where I sit on it. So for all the people who say, why don't you go out and travel and stuff like that? I'm good. I'm good. They also list off the countries. We're not going to go over them, but this is the list of countries that this applies to, that this rule applies to. And it says CBP said in a statement on Wednesday that the rule has not taken effect and has not been finalized. It's hit the public for notice for at least 60 days. So it'll be at least 60 days before this takes effect, but I would imagine that it's going to get implemented pretty quick. Pretty quick after that 60 days. All right. Sticking with immigration and travel, we have this report that just came out. It says immigration agents are using air passenger data for deportation effort. The Transportation Security Administration is providing passenger lists to Immigration and Customs Enforcement to identify and detain travelers subject to deportation orders. This isn't foreign travel. This is domestic air travel that this is for. This is for you and me, for those who are watching from the United States. It says the Trump administration is providing the names of all travelers passing through the U.S. airports to immigration officials in search of people with deportation orders, a substantial expansion of government efforts to draw on data to hunt down immigrants it wants to expel. Under the previously undisclosed program, the Transportation Security Administration provides a list multiple times a week to Immigration and Customs Enforcement of travelers who will be coming through airports. ICE can then match the list against its own database of people subject to deportation and send agents to the airport to detain these people. So basically, if you're already in the country and you're just flying from one city to another, and you're a U.S. citizen, you were born here, the moment you buy a plane ticket, that airline is sending your information to TSA. They're doing all their searching on it. Then the TSA is now sending your name and that information to ICE. And then ICE is searching all through their database for your name as well. So now you're getting checked by the TSA and ICE if you are flying domestically in this country. Feels nice, right? Yeah. Important to note that at this time, we're getting word from Pam Bondi that they have announced that the FBI is building a special database that will be connected both to the U.S. nationalist or the U.S. national database as well as the ICE database. That if they find any information that they find extreme, you will be then listed as a domestic terrorist based upon the rules defined by the NSPM 7 thing. And so if the TSA is sending information to the ICE group for their database search, it's only a matter of time, and they probably won't announce it. Just like they didn't announce this one. This one just happened to catch wind and come out. But they probably won't announce it, but it's only a matter of time before they start placing your name into the database search for NSPM 7, which has to do with anything anti-American. So if you go against Trump's political policies, that would be deemed anti-American. And if you're trying to fly domestically, they will arrest you in the airport. Now, that hasn't been announced yet. What I'm telling you is this is the next step in all of this. They're going to start cracking down on domestic travel, and they're going to start arresting not only immigrants, but they're going to start arresting United States citizens that fall into their definition of domestic terrorist, which at this point is if you oppose Trump, you are a domestic terrorist. Be on the lookout for it. I can almost guarantee you that that's the next step that's coming. It goes on to say ICE has historically avoided interfering with domestic travel, but the partnership between airport security and the immigration agency, which began quietly in March, is the latest way that the Trump administration is increasing cooperation and information sharing between federal agencies in service of the president's goal of carrying out the largest deportation campaign in U.S. history. But the TSA previously did not get involved in domestic criminal or immigration matters, said one former agency official who spoke on the condition of being anonymous to discuss the issue freely. Among the concerns, the former official said has been that the enforcement activities at airports could distract from airport security and contribute to longer passenger wait times, which after the government shut down, we all know that doesn't matter. Plus, you add in the fact of Kristi Noem's announcement. We went over this as well, that there's going to be $1 billion investment in airport security. And then a month later, we found out that involves updating to the highest level available biometric collection and surveillance data systems and applying it to all airports in the United States. So at this point, if you're just walking through an airport, they can scan your face, run you through the criminal database. If you have said something online that is against Trump, that would be deemed anti-American, and you can just be arrested on the spot for simply just standing in the airport and having a different political view of Trump. You guys see how this works? You guys see how it's all starting to happen? I remember hearing countless times that what we're seeing right now, no, that's something that Kamala would do. That's not anything Trump would do. Trump's trying to fight against all that stuff. He doesn't want to bring all that stuff in, when that's exactly what they were counting on, because you fell for the cult of personality. You supported Trump no matter what because it's better than the other option, even though they're both puppets for the same team. And the very same thing that you said Kamala was going to do that you've been advocating against for your entire life, Trump is now introducing it, and you're either now supporting it or you're ignoring it simply because you like the cult of personality. Again, seek the truth. Follow Thessalonians. Follow what Paul told us in Thessalonians. Seek the truth. Find the truth. Live the truth. Love the truth. Go for the truth. Leave everything else behind. That's why we seek the truth first. Now, a lot of people are asking, why are you telling us to this? We can't fight back against this. Who cares? Well, because we're supposed to seek the truth. We're not supposed to be stupid. The Lord has called us to seek knowledge. He wants us to be smart. He wants us to seek out this information. He wants us to seek out the truth. So That's why we talk about these things. That's why we look for these things. Yes, we can't fight against this. We know that that's not going to happen. We know that this is what is coming, but that doesn't give us the excuse to either ignore it, excuse it, or just sit here and go, well, there's no point in even talking about it because there's nothing we can do about it. We need to know what's going on. We can use this as a witnessing tool. Now, again, I've used this example before, but it's important to know you don't just walk up to some random 90-year-old lady in the grocery store aisle and say, hey, did you hear about what they're doing with all the biometric scans at the airport and stuff like that? You're going to freak her out. Don't do that. But there are times when that information can become useful in order to warn people and use it as a witnessing tool, or to talk to somebody else who is already saved through Jesus Christ that doesn't know what on earth is going on. And you can start opening up a conversation, hopefully get into prophetic events and have a discussion from there. So that's why this is important. That we don't fall into this trap of either, well, I don't want to know the truth because it goes against my political standing, or you fall into the trap of, well, we can't fight against it and there's nothing else that we can do and it just makes me depressed, so I don't even want to know what's going on. I'm just going to cover my ears and go, la, 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 la. Well, that's not bringing any joy to the Lord either. You don't want to be doing that. It's one of those things where I often say, yeah, there's a lot of people that get depressed by this stuff. But again, if you go in with the right mindset, if you know this stuff is coming, you know it has to happen, and you can use it as encouragement for the more that this stuff rolls out, the closer we are to getting out of this place. That depression that you have from all the evil that is happening turns into encouragement, turns into excitement, turns into fire in the gut to share this with other people. That's what the Lord wants you to have. And with the right mindset and with the right knowledge, that's what you'll get. That's where I'm at. When I see stuff like this, I thank the Lord that I got Jesus. I thank the Lord that I have himself. Yeah, that makes sense. You guys know what I mean. And this stuff doesn't depress me. It doesn't wear on me. I read this stuff and yeah, sucks for all those who don't have Jesus. Maybe I should use this as fire in order to hopefully get a couple of them over to Jesus before all this stuff starts going down. It's all in the mind on that. Your mindset. Use it. Use it. All right, what else we got? The NDAA just passed the House. It says U.S. House backs massive defense policy bill. It's moving on to the Senate. 1 second. Excuse me. All right. It says the U.S. House of Representatives passed a massive defense policy bill on Wednesday, authorizing a record $901 billion with a billion in annual military spending, paving the way for must-pass measure to become law for a 65th straight year. Almost $1 trillion. $901 billion for military spending. This goes in so many ways because we know that there's major wars that are going to happen. But we also know that that includes what they plan on doing on their own streets in the United States as well. Very, very interesting. It says the tally was 312 to 112 in favor of the National Defense Authorization Act, or NDAA, sending it to consideration by the U.S. Senate, which is expected to pass next week. The $901 billion in defense spending is $8 billion more than what Trump requested earlier this year. Says the NDAA also provides $400 million in military assistance to Ukraine in the next 2 years. So in this bill, they're authorizing $800 million of your money to send it over to Ukraine. I've lost track of how much money has been sent to Ukraine since this thing has started. But more money is getting sent over to Ukraine. Yes, this is the same war that Trump said that he will end before he actually even takes office. And we're about almost a year now and the war hasn't stopped, and we're actually sending more money over there. Fascinating. Promises made, promises kept, right? That's what I always get told. It says the sweeping 3,086 page bill unveiled on Sunday. 3,086 pages. You think they're reading all that? I don't think so. I'd hate to be the poor schmuck who has to write that thing. But yeah, 3,086 pages before anybody asks. No, I'm not going to read that entire thing. I'll skim through it and see what I can find, but I ain't going to read that whole thing. Includes measures to make life better for the troops, including a 4% pay raise and improvements in base housing. Well, there's a positive there. For those who are in the military, you're going to get a little pay raise. With how things are moving, though, that might actually not matter, but we'll see what happens. Either way, that's a positive on that. But they always like to hide things in these bills, especially when they're over 3,000 pages. They hide stuff in there, and the stuff that they hide is only like a paragraph, and sometimes it's only 2 or 3 sentences. And so trying to find those little things is really, really hard. And sometimes you don't even find them till years later, and I'm sure they've hit a lot of stuff in this thing. Says the NDAA authorizes Pentagon programs but does not fund them. Congress must separately pass funding and a spending bill for the fiscal year ending in September of 2026. In addition to the typical NDAA provisions on defense acquisitions and competition with rivals like China and Russia, there's the narrative. This year's bill focuses on cutting programs reviled by Trump, such as diversity, equity, and inclusion training, which, of course, we know that was installed on purpose in order to cause the chaos during the Biden administration, which then fueled the fire to bring Trump in for this one. And so if Trump is getting rid of the DEI stuff while installing globalist technocracy systems, people are still going to go along with Trump because they've been force-fed the woke narrative for 4 years of Biden. And so everything that Trump is doing is going to be good. That's part of the psychological factor of this. And that's something that I hope everybody is seeing. And they're not losing track of that, is because they like to use that mind stuff against people. So they support things that they naturally wouldn't. The whole woke situation in itself is bad. It is completely anti-God. It is anti-scripture. It is being natural. We understand that, all that stuff, but they put that stuff in places on purpose in order to fuel a psychological snap for people, whether it's political, whether it's religious, whether it's just people to have them have people bend and go against their own stances on things, all in the name of just removing something. It's the same situation with immigration, because it's been force-fed into people's heads so much that everything that comes along with it, well, we can take out the immigrants, but we have to start installing all of this other stuff that's going to take away all of your privacy. It's going to start collecting all your data. It's going to be installing a one-world technocratic system. People are going to be going, they're not even going to be looking at that. They're not interested in that. They're just interested in getting the immigration stuff out. Take a look at the prophecy teachers and stuff like that. They're so focused on the Muslim takeover of the United States that they are actively supporting the very same technocratic systems that they've been teaching against for 4, 5, 6 years, because they were force-fed a specific narrative that was purposely put into the mainstream media for years and years and years, that's the only thing that they've got on their mind. And so that's what they're going to focus on. And so because of that, they're going to go against what they've been speaking against because of that one thing. The same stuff with the woke situation. You start planting that everywhere, and people, it gets hooked into their mind. That's the only thing that they can focus on. And so anything that follows after that, they don't care, because simply the woke situation. And so that's why it's important that we can recognize the psychological stuff. It's a psy war. It's a psychological war that is currently happening right now. And the very same people, and I'm not saying I got it all figured out. I'm not saying that at all. But the very same people that claim that they're warning about the Psy War are falling for the Psy War. And it's so simple to see. So we need to make sure that we can recognize that stuff. We're not going to be able to counter everything. We're not going to be able to see everything when it comes to psychological warfare. But we must be willing to view things from a different angle if we want to start catching some of those psychological warfare things. And so that's why we need to make sure that we can, what's the best way to put it? Don't let your own personal bias deceive yourself. And I've talked about this a lot. I talked about it a lot during the Psy War series that I did. But the biggest, I'm sure everybody, not everybody, but most people would answer, who is the biggest deceiver in your life? Think about it. Think about it. Who would you say is the biggest deceiver in your life? Most Christians would say Satan. No. Satan is too busy doing a whole bunch of other stuff. You're nothing to him. He's not spending your time on you. You're not that special. You are your biggest deceiver. I am my own biggest deceiver. We deceive ourselves daily, multiple times daily. Why? Because we have an agenda. We have a bias. We have a leaning. We have a preference. And so when something gets introduced that goes against that, rather than testing it and viewing it from a different angle before coming to a conclusion or just having an idea about it, we base everything off of our own bias. And if it goes against that, we immediately put up a wall. And that's exactly what the other deceivers of this world that work for Satan are hoping for. And so when it comes to immigration, when it comes to woke, when it comes to Christian nationalism, when it comes to the list, it's on and on and on. It's a giant list. That's what they're banking on. And that's what they use. They use your mind against yourself in order for them to advance forward. Now, they're not going to win. The Lord wins. History's already happened for God. We know the ending. It's not a prediction. The prophecy that we read is not a prediction. It's history. It's just history that we haven't lived yet. But they don't know that. They're too busy taking orders from Satan, who's counting on you to deceive yourself. And so that's one of the things that I always like to stress when it comes to all of this stuff. That's why I laugh. And people have been confused. Why are you laughing at this? This is a serious matter. But that's why I laugh whenever I see the prophecy teachers for months and months and months shouting the Muslim takeover is about to destroy America tomorrow. And here we are and nothing has happened except for a gigantic implementation of technocratic authoritarianism in this country, which was the outcome of this Muslim takeover that we're being fed. Something to think about. Anyways, let's move on. Sticking with technocracy. The War Department unleashes AI on new GenAI.mil platform. Says the War Department today announced the launch of Google Cloud's Gemini for Government as the first of several frontier AI capabilities to be housed on GenAI.mil. This thing was announced a few days ago, and you still can't access the website. The link does not work. I've tried. This is the department's new bespoke AI platform. This initiative cultivates an AI-first workforce, leveraging generative AI capabilities to create a more efficient and battle-ready enterprise. Additional world-class AI models will be available to all citizens, contractors, and military personnel, delivering on the White House's AI action plan announced earlier this year. This past year, Trump instituted a mandate to achieve an unprecedented level of AI technological superiority. The War Department is delivering on this mandate, ensuring it is not just ink on paper. In response to this directive, AI capabilities have now reached all desktops in the Pentagon and in American military installations around the world. AI capabilities have now reached all desktops in the Pentagon and in American military installations around the world. I'm just curious. Have these people watched Terminator? It's a trick question. We know that the very same people who are implementing the AI system were the same people who gave the idea to James Cameron. It's a trick question. But still, you know what I'm saying. Have these people watched Terminator? Have they seen Skynet? Because this is what Skynet is. We're going to take this AI system and we're going to plug it into every department, every computer, every installation of military that we have. This is not going to end well. For them, for those who are going to be left standing here, praise the Lord for us, we'll be gone, but still, it's not going to end well. This is the first instance on GenAI.mil. Gemini for Government empowers intelligent agentic workflows, unleashes experimentation, and ushers in an AI-driven culture change that will dominate the digital battlefield for years to come. We all feeling warm and fuzzy inside? I'm just curious. It says there's no prize for second place. And here we go with the Cold War playbook again. There's no prize for second place in the global race for AI dominance, said Emil Michael, Undersecretary of War for Research and Engineering. There's no prize for second place. This is the exact same language. Just go. You guys can find it online. There's old newspapers that you can read back from the Cold War era. That is word for word, verbatim, the exact same stuff that they were saying back in the Cold War to get society to support more military funding in order to beat the Russians. It's the exact same thing. They're pulling out the same playbook for the AI situation, which is more focused on China. Again, you know, I always like to say this. A lot of people like to quote those who don't know history are doomed to repeat it. But those very same people that quote that all the time can't seem to see this when it comes to the AI race with China. It's not a race. There's no war. Literally the same construction of technocracy in China, they were the first ones there to test it. All that stuff is now coming to us because we're all in it together. What was that? That was an old Disney movie. High School Musical. We're all in this together. Well, that's really what's going on. That's exactly the situation that's happening right now. But they're trying to pose it as an actual war against China or against other countries that are doing the AI thing like that. And so they need your support. We need your support so we can finance this AI system that's not going against China. It's just helping us develop and research to build upon what China has already done because they are the testing ground for it. That's what is happening. It says we are pushing on all of our chips. I don't think he meant that as a pun, but I think it's funny. We're pushing all of our chips in on artificial intelligence as a fighting force. The department is tapping into America's commercial genius. Let me just translate that for us to make sense. The department is tapping into America's corporatism genius. And if you guys don't know what corporatism is, based on the definition given to us by another authoritarian, Mussolini, means fascist. America's fascist genius. And we're embedding generative AI into our daily battle rhythm, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth remarked. Was that before or after his second bottle? Anyways, we'll just leave it there. Low-hanging fruit. We're not going to do that. To get a little bit more information on this, we're going to see this. This is inside the AI platform, an internal memo. It says generative AI is now in use across the United States Department of War, according to documents and screenshots leaked to me from this department this morning. With this launch, we are taking a giant step towards mass AI adoption across the department, wrote Secretary of War Pete Hegseth in a memorandum to all Department of War personnel. As of December 9th, 2025, DOD, whatever, employees can use the custom Google-made AI tool named Gemini. It is now available on all desktops of all military personnel, civilians, and contractors, according to Hegseth's memo. So we're getting confirmation from an official website, which is just confirming this investigator's own research. It says the tool also provides extensions to Grok, ChatGPT, and Claude. Hang on to that, because that's going to be important for something I'll show you in a second. Shown below in photos of the Gemini interface I obtained this morning from a source within the department. So these are just screenshots. Somebody who's in the Department of War managed to snag a few screenshots and then send them out. And you guys can see here, Gemini, Grok, ChatGPT, and Claude are all in this GenAI.mil program. And it says Gemini is referred to as the Department of War's premier AI model platform throughout this new website. The tool's purpose is described as follows. By integrating AI with our operational capabilities, we will compress the OODA loop, which is the observe, orient, decide, act, at all echelons, ensuring that the Department of War can outthink, outdecide, and outpace any adversary. His guidelines for DOW's AI also included a do and don't list. An example of don't was don't use Gen AI for decisions involving attribution, targeting, or threat evaluation without human validation. I read that as someone can read what the AI said and be like, yep, it's good to go shoot that missile, said one source within DOW. They are legit going full force into AI, they remarked. This is very, very, very identical to what Israel's military is using when it comes to Lavender, their Lavender system. It was the Gospel. It was originally called the Gospel, which was a horrible name because it's an AI targeting system that kills people. Why you'd call it the Gospel, I don't know. And then it changed to something else, and then it became Lavender. It went through like 3 different names, but it's the same thing. What it can do is it's plugged into the military system. It's able to find a target, evaluate if that's the correct target and the best course of action, and then give you a recommendation for how to attack it. And so basically what this system is in the Department of War is identical to what Israel has been using in Gaza and Lebanon and so on and so forth. They used to be able to launch like 30, 40 strikes in a day. And ever since they implemented that system, they can do like 150 strikes a day. Now the U.S. military's got it. Rock on, man. Says the website also explains that DOW is now creating human-machine teams. And rather than describing Gemini as an AI tool to be used by the department, it is referred to as a joint force. Ugh. Yikes. But this part here. Nope, that's not it. Where's it at? Right here. So Grok, ChatGPT, and Claude are also involved with this. So that's Google, that's XAI, that's OpenAI, and that's Anthropic. Those are the 4 that are involved with that. Do you guys remember when we talked about this? This was July of this year. Here we go. The roosters are coming home. It says Pentagon taps 4 commercial tech firms to expand military use of AI. This was July of this year. The Pentagon announced Monday it has chosen Google, XAI, Anthropic, and OpenAI. The 4 AI programs on GenAI.mil are the same programs by these four companies that got the Pentagon contracts earlier this year. Each company received a contract worth up to $200 million, according to a notice from Chief Digital and AI Office. The firms will help the Defense Department develop agentic AI workflows for key national security missions. And here it is. Because that's exactly what it is. Here it comes. Not only that, do you guys remember this? Going back a month earlier. Army recruits officers from Meta, OpenAI, and Palantir to serve in new detachment. Executives from high-tech firms Meta, OpenAI, and Palantir are joining the Army Reserves at the rank of lieutenant colonel. So they're just bypassing everybody and just immediately getting lieutenant colonel to serve in Detachment 201, a new executive innovation corps. The service announced Friday. This was June of this year. You guys remember this? Executives from high-tech firms Meta, OpenAI, and Palantir are joining the Army Reserve as a rank lieutenant colonel to serve in Detachment 201. And it says the move is the latest push by the department to tap into capabilities and know-how from Silicon Valley in the commercial sector. Commercial, corporatism, fascist authoritarianism, and technocracy. We're here. On Friday, the service is set to swear in Meta's Chief Technology Officer, Andrew Bosworth, OpenAI's Chief Product Officer, Kevin Weil, Palantir's CTO, Sham Shankar, and Bob McGrew, an advisor at Thinking Machines Lab, who was previously OpenAI's Chief Research Officer. All these little moves that we've been following for the past year that we're like, is anything going to come from this? Are we going to see anything about this? We're now seeing the outcome of it. Well, not really the outcome, but it's showing that, yes, all those moves really did mean something, and we're seeing some production from it now. Those contracts that they handed out to those 4 specific corporations, AI corporations, are the ones integrated into this new military Pentagon AI system that's in every single computer in the military, both domestically and in foreign countries. And it's being run by Detachment 201, which is 4 executives from these AI companies that are basically the bridge between Silicon Valley and the military system that we're seeing right now. We should all have the warm and fuzzies right now. Everybody grab a chocolate milk. Grab your favorite blankie. We can all rest confidently and comfortably now that the military is controlled by an AI system. This shouldn't surprise us. I'm not surprised in the least. Because we knew it was coming. We knew that this stuff was coming last year before Trump was even in office. We were talking about it. You guys are smart. You guys know. You guys knew it was coming. Here it is. Here it is. The thing is right now, all they're doing is plugging it in. They haven't even turned it on yet. That's going to be some fireworks when that starts happening. Sticking with technocratic people, we have the billionaire wants to bring back public executions. Well, who is that? The billionaire co-founder of the data analytics and software giant Palantir has called for the U.S. to bring back public hangings for repeat violent offenders. Joe Lonsdale defended open air executions in a series of posts on X, saying their reintroduction would be an example of the masculine leadership this country is sorely lacking. If I'm in charge later, we won't just have 3 strikes law. We will quickly try and hang men after 3 violent crimes. And yes, we will do it in the public to deter others, he wrote. Our society needs balance. It's time to bring back masculine leadership to protect our most vulnerable. I have a thing I'm going with this. Hang with me. He's a creepy dude. Like, I don't know. He's just creepy. It says Lonsdale founded Palantir in 2003 alongside entrepreneurs Peter Thiel, Stephen Cohen, Nathan Gettings, and Alex Karp, its current CEO, and boasts a net worth of around $3.6 billion per the latest Forbes estimate. Lonsdale's defense of public executions emerged in an X thread discussing Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, who on Friday bragged about a narco boat strike he said was carried out because of the wishes of Turning Point USA spokesman Andrew Colvett. I've got the receipts on that. So Chuck Schumer, which, anyways, said Pete Hegseth is not qualified to serve as Secretary of Defense. Our troops deserve better. He must resign. I actually agree with him on that, but that's beside the point. Andrew Colvett, who, if we can see here, Christian, proud husband and father, TP USA spokesman, executive director of the Charlie Kirk Show, so confirming that that's who it is, said every new attack aimed at Pete Hegseth makes me want another narco boat blown up and sent to the bottom of the ocean. So his response, being the Christian man that he is and being the spokesperson for the Charlie Kirk Show and for TP USA, basically said that whenever Pete Hegseth gets his fifis hurt by people commenting online, he wants another bomb to be dropped and murdered people who we don't know if they're actually carrying drugs or not. That's something that we should all seek to rise up to. That's the level that we're supposed to rise up to. So whenever your feelings get hurt, go ahead and murder another person with a bomb. And Pete Hegseth responded to him and said, "Your wish is our command, Andrew. Just sunk another narco boat." This is a game for them. They find this funny. I hope you guys realize that. Pete Hegseth, Andrew Colvett, Trump, all these people, Joe Lonsdale, Peter Thiel, Alex Karp, in his drug-induced mind, he loves it. They find it funny. Just killing people. Because it's fun. Funny. We're all laughing. We're laughing. Says, sinking narco boats publicly helps deter others, as hanging repeat violent criminals. Lonsdale posted in response, killing bad guys is the Department of War's job. He should brag more. Masculine truth, bold, virtuous men deter evil. So basically, you're a bold, virtuous man who's deterring evil when you brag about killing somebody. That's what's going on. So my point on this, I got a couple points on this. I know it's like, where are you going with this? I got a couple points. First of all, we have a pretty good understanding from the boys who started Palantir, at least 3 of them, Lonsdale, Karp, and Thiel, that they have zero care about killing people to obtain what they want. Joe Lonsdale's confirming it here. I've shown the video of Alex Karp. Alex Karp has said this multiple times, but I've shown one video on it. It was an investment call where he said that, we're killing people in order to get what we want at Palantir. No problem there. And in subtle ways, not as publicly, Peter Thiel has kind of said the same thing in the past. Not so much lately, but he said it in the past. They have no problem disrupting things, blowing things up, and killing people in order to obtain what they want to in life. And so that's a good understanding for Palantir, because we're going to start getting into more stuff with Palantir. I'll tell you what, Palantir, I'm usually one of those people where if there's a big face in front of things, it's usually there for a reason. And they want you looking at it, but there's usually something else going on behind the scenes. With how Palantir's operating, I'm becoming ever more convinced that specific system is going to be used by the Antichrist. Just how it's going. We'll get to that. But the people who started it clearly have no care about how it's used in order to harm people for what they want. And the other thing that I want to bring forward is we're getting public calls by very high up people who actually make decisions to bring public execution back, which is kind of a pointing to what we know is going to happen in the future when they start publicly beheading those who will not denounce the name of Christ. And so that's pretty fascinating to say. I'm not going to say, we're going to have public hangings and stuff tomorrow. That's not what I'm saying. But it is interesting that we are getting some very important people from high up places that are publicly pushing for public executions. And we know that that's something that will be coming in the future. So just something to note on that. That's all. Just simply something to note. All right. Let's get into our Palantir update, shall we? Since we've got plenty of Palantirism happening right now. And so I covered this on Friday's Wretched Recap, but I wanted to start out with this because I think it is important. It says Israel used Palantir technology in its 2024 Lebanon pager attack, book claims. And it says Palantir software was used by Israel in its 2024 pager attacks in Lebanon, according to a new book by Alex Karp, co-founder of Palantir Technology. On September 17th, thousands of pagers belonging to Hezbollah members, including civilians not involved in any armed activity, were detonated across Lebanon. Many showed error messages and vibrated loudly prior to exploding, luring Hezbollah members, or in some cases their family members, to stand close by at the point of detonation. As Karp's new biography revealed that Israel deepened its use of the company's technology after it launched the war on Gaza in October of 2023, deploying it in numerous operations. The company's technology was deployed by the Israelis during military operations in Lebanon in 2024 that decimated Hezbollah's top leadership, wrote Michael Steinberger, author of The Philosopher in the Valley, Alex Karp, Palantir, and the Rise of the Surveillance State. It's also used in Operation Grim Beeper, in which hundreds of Hezbollah fighters were injured and maimed when their pagers and walkie-talkies exploded. The Israelis had booby-trapped the devices. He said that the demand for Palantir's assistance by Israel was so great that the company dispatched a team of engineers from London to help get Israeli users online. And so this is one of those situations where we're just kind of hearing it from Alex Karp himself, so take that with a grain of salt. But we do know that the Israeli Palantir partnership, whatever you want to call it, goes back a very long time. Palantir has been embedded in the Israeli government and military for a very long time, even before this pager attack happened. So it's possible that Palantir technology was involved in this pager attack, which reveals a lot, not only from the Palantir side of things, but also from the Israeli government side of things. And it shows what's going on with that partnership. And it's the same partnership that Palantir has with the United States, has with the UAE, has with Saudi Arabia, has with the United Kingdom, has with United Kingdom, but also NATO, much of NATO. They're involved with that as well. Palantir's involved with Australia and a whole host of other countries that they're involved with. And it's just, you're seeing these just claws of Palantir getting sunken into everything from personal data to administrative work, to data collection, to military operations, to kill chain operations, to manufacturing operations, to corporate, just everyday functions, to financial stuff. I mean, you're just seeing Palantir. How on earth does this one company, and we know where they started and whatnot, but even so, how on earth does this company go global in almost every sector of life? From the moment a baby is born, Palantir's collecting its DNA, to when it gets to school, when it gets to college, when it gets to work, when it gets to anywhere else, it's collecting all of that data. And it could very well be the same system that takes the life of that very same person that it's collected data through from the moment it was born. That's something to think about. Palantir, while it's starting to get known out there, I would still say that the majority of the world has never even heard the name. Even though they're involved with almost every asset or every facet of life for most people now. I just can't help but wonder if Palantir system, because I'm always from the perspective of, just because we have a company that's building something right now doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to be the same thing that's going to be used in the future. It could be turned into, or it could be folded into something else, or that information could be transferred over to somewhere else, which that'll take it from there. I'm starting to wonder if Palantir itself, that company, is going to play a role when the Antichrist steps onto the scene, which is fascinating to think, at least from my own perspective and thinking in my head. I know you guys can't see how I think on that, but I think you guys understand what I'm trying to say. Now, Speaking of Palantir, Palantir quietly lands in education department through foreign funding portal. Education department. I thought they just dismantled that. No, they didn't dismantle the education department. It got folded into the Department of Labor. So it's still there. It's still there. Just like the USAID program didn't get dismantled. Even though all the prophecy teachers were saying, yay, Trump got rid of USAID, the thing that was feeding all the woke stuff. Well, if they just took about 10 minutes and researched it, they realized that USAID was never dismantled. It was just folded over into the State Department. Who runs the State Department? Marco Rubio. All that stuff's still going on. People don't realize it. Do your research. Seek the truth. Anyways, it says Palantir is expanding its reach into the education department, where the data analytics and software giant is helping develop the agency's new portal for universities across the country to report foreign donations. The quiet move marks the technology company's latest expansion into federal government work, particularly in data management services. An education department spokesperson confirmed Palantir was involved as a subcontractor for its revamped foreign funding portal, which is set to be rolled out early next month. The agency announced the portal project this week, but did not name the vendors behind it. The portal will serve as a central place for schools to disclose to the department any foreign source gifts and contracts worth $250,000 or more, the agency said. Palantir is a subcontractor to Moncton, a North Virginia-based computer and network security company, the spokesperson told FedScoop. According to the federal spending records, the education department awarded a contract to Moncton in September that obligated $9.8 million for the design, development, and deployment of a Section 117 information sharing environment capable of providing greater transparency. Palantir, however, is not publicly listed as a subcontractor on the project, so they awarded a contract to a group that's backed by Palantir, but they're not listed there, even though they're the ones involved. Shell companies. The contract with Moncton could cost the agency up to $61.8 million, more than 6 times the cost of the modernization project for the ed.gov website, which was allocated at $10 million. Speculation over the portal began after the agency's Office of the Chief Information Officer registered a new federal domain, which was discovered by a bot tracking the government domains. When FedScoop visited the link shortly before 10:30 a.m. Eastern on Thursday, the website showed a blocked network alert, which read, "The network connection you are using is not in your enrollment ingress allow list. Please contact your enrollment administrator or Palantir representative." So basically, while Palantir's name isn't on anything and isn't connected in any way to the documents that were being seen regarding this with the education department, it's Palantir's system, because when you tried to enter the website at this time, you have the Palantir logo and it says contact Palantir representative. And then visiting the page an hour later, the website showed a login page with the Palantir logo, and then eventually it was replaced by the Department of Education logo after that. So we have Palantir, again, every facet of your life, including the Department of Education, including if foreign funding into colleges is happening, Palantir is going to know about it. They're the ones collecting the data. It's just incredible to see this company involved with, again, every sector of every department. It's just crazy. We also have this. This is new contract shows Palantir is working on a tech platform for another federal agency that works with ICE. Palantir, the artificial intelligence and data analytics company, has quietly started working on a tech platform for a federal immigration agency that has referred dozens of individuals to the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement for potential enforcement since September. The U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, USCIS, agency, which handles services including citizenship applications, family immigration, adoptions, and work permits for non-citizens, started the contract with Palantir at the end of October and is paying the data analytics company to implement phase 0 of a vetting of wedding-based schemes or vows platform. According to the federal contract, the contract is small, less than $100,000, and details what exactly the new platform entails are thin. The contract itself offers few details apart from general description of the platform, vetting of wedding-based schemes, and an estimate that the completion of the contract would be December 9th. Palantir declined to comment on the contract or nature of the work, and USCIS did not respond to requests or comments for this story. Palantir is going to start collecting data and analyzing data for green card weddings. So if somebody in the United States is marrying a foreigner, all the information is going to have to be fed through a Palantir Analytics AI system if you want to actually get married. So now AI is going to determine if you can get married to somebody. But the contract is notable nonetheless, as it marks the beginning of a new relationship between USCIS and Palantir, which has long-standing contracts with ICE, another agency within the Department of Homeland Security, since at least 2011. The description of the contract suggests that the Vows platform may very well focus on marriage fraud and related to USCIS's recent stated effort to drill down on duplicity in applications for marriage and family-based petitions, employment authorizations, and parole-related requests. Guys, you cannot make this up. I told you, the moment you're born, Palantir is collecting data, going into the Department of Education, going into who you're marrying, what job that you're involved with, and could very well be the same AI system that determines if they'll take your life or not. USCIS has been outspoken about its recent collaboration with ICE. Over 9 days in September, USCIS announced that it worked with ICE and the Federal Bureau of Investigation to conduct what it called Operation Twin Shield in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area, where immigration officials investigated potential cases of fraud in immigration benefit applications the agency had received. The agency reported that its officers referred 42 cases to ICE over the period. That's just in one region. That's not all. U.S. Navy pledges $448 million to test if Palantir is seaworthy. Palantir and the U.S. Navy have signed a 2-year deal to test whether its Foundry operational software can streamline the nation's shipbuilding efforts and steer the Secretary of Navy's top budget priority into ports. The $448 million contract will bring Palantir's technology to work on shipbuilders, shipyards, critical suppliers, said U.S. Secretary of Navy John Phelan and Palantir CEO Alex Karp during a presentation Tuesday evening in Washington, D.C. The company is calling this particular program ShipOS. Phelan listed strengthening U.S. shipbuilding and the maritime industrial base as a top priority of his $292.2 billion budget request for 2026, which called for 19 new battle force ships. The budget also invests $2.5 billion just for submarine builders to increase their health and supply chain enterprise. Palantir's software will initially be deployed across 2 major shipbuilders, 3 shipyards, and 100 suppliers, all of which are part of the Maritime Industrial Base, a Navy program established in 2024 to revitalize U.S. shipbuilding and repair. Palantir previously announced a deal with the MIB to use its warp speed manufacturing software in July. Again, have they seen Terminator? Because this is Skynet. AI building robots, AI controlling robots, AI killing humans. Speaking of AI, Trump signs executive order to block state AI regulations. This is President Donald Trump signed an executive order Thursday aimed at blocking states from crafting their own regulations for artificial intelligence. So I covered this again on Friday with the Wretched Recap, but I wanted to start out with this for the next thing that we're going to talk about. So if you guys remember back with the big, beautiful bill, there was a clause in there, policy clause, whatever you want to call it, in there that would block states from making laws against AI companies for 10 years. Well, that caught wind and people were up in arms about it, and it finally got removed from the big, beautiful bill. Like a month after that, Trump came out and said that they're going to find some way to make it happen through an executive order. And here we are. It finally made its way through that Trump The very same Trump that I have been told countless times is trying to save the United States, be America first, and apply the Constitution, is literally burning the rights of states. Sovereign states are getting told what to do by the federal government when it comes to AI laws. So this is just another case of Trump wiping his rear end with the Constitution and taking away states' rights. And it's very similar as we go through this, very similar, and I talked about this on Friday, it's very similar to what Abraham Lincoln did when he was president, where he burned the Constitution, arrested anybody who went against his political policies, and started destroying the states' rights, which is why it's the War of Northern Aggression, which you would hear it as the Civil War, but ultimately it was Abraham Lincoln who tried to create, or was told to create, the federal government, which has to do with what we have now. And Trump is doing basically the identical thing that Abraham Lincoln did back then. So most people like to refer to Abraham Lincoln as one of the greatest presidents ever. He was, in my opinion, the worst, but he's in the top 3 worst presidents because, well, you can see from here. But you won't read that in a history book. It says members of Congress from both parties, as well as civil liberties and consumer rights group, have pushed for more regulations on AI, saying there's not enough oversight for the powerful technology. But Trump told reporters in the Oval Office that there's only going to be one winner. So we're back to the Cold War playbook. There's only going to be one winner as nations race to dominate artificial intelligence, and China, yes, China, that China, President Xi, China, I'm going to be the greatest. China's central government gives its companies a single place to go for government approvals. We have the big investment coming, but if they had to get 50 different approvals from 50 different states, you can forget it because it's impossible to do. So basically what he's saying is because these states might actually, stand up for their own sovereignty and block AI stuff from their state, we can't have that. So I'm going to go ahead and take away their sovereignty. I'm going to go ahead and take away their states' rights, and I'm going to threaten them if they don't do what I want them to do, so I can get my AI stuff to go through. Why? Because we need to be like China, where it's only one person making a decision rather than 50. So basically what he's saying is burn the Constitution, take away sovereign states' rights, and be more like China. That's what Trump is saying. I hope you guys can see that. It says the executive order directs the Attorney General to create a new task force to challenge state laws and directs the Commerce Department to draw up a list of problematic regulations. It also threatens to restrict funding from broadband deployment programs and other grant programs to states with AI laws. So if you want to be a sovereign state and block AI, well, guess what? We're going to open up a task force. We're going to do an investigation into your government, and we're going to take away your federal funding. Just like China. Just like China. So let's hear what Trump has to say, because in this clip here, when he signed this executive order, you can clearly see that he wants to be just like Xi. Let's see what he has to say.
Again, I believe there'll only be one country that really benefits, and it should be the United States, and it will be if we do this and we're unified. We have to be unified. China is unified because they have one vote. That's President Xi. He says do it, and that's the end of that. We have a different system, but we have a system that's good, but we only have a system that's good if it's smart. David Sachs, can you say a few words, please?
So he's basically saying that whatever Xi says, again, I'm looking over here, bad habit. Whatever Xi says, it's unified because it's his decision. And so what he's trying to do with this executive order is make it like China, basically saying, I'm the one deciding. All you states need to now listen to what I want to say, or you're gonna listen to what I have to say about this, and you're gonna do what I'm telling you to do. And so he's trying to be like China. Again, this is the same dude that was caught saying that he wants to be like Kim Jong-un. The North Korea guy, where everybody's his people, and when he enters the room, everybody stands for him. And so again, he has the mindset of authoritarianism. He has the mindset of dictatorship. Why? Because he is the one that was put in place in order to get this stuff going. And he had so much media backing to build the cult of personality, to build the MAGA group, that those who supported him, no matter what, are okay with this. They're on board with this and will defend this because it's better than the other person. Even though that argument is out the window because there was no other option. He was the option. He was the direction that they were going. He was picked to do just this. And I brought this up because of this. Trump approved sale of more advanced NVIDIA computer chips used in AI to China. The very same China that we continue to get told day in and day out that we're at war with, that we're trying to stop, that Trump doesn't like and is trying to, he's doing all the tariff war with them and we're racing them for AI dominance. And, that's what we're trying to do. He just signed a deal allowing NVIDIA to sell advanced computer chips to the very same people that he says we're in a race with for AI. Make it make sense. If you go with the official narrative that we've been told, it doesn't make any sense. But if you go with the truth and what we've been looking at, putting bias and narrative aside, it makes perfect sense. Because we're not at war with China. We're not in a race with China. No, Trump and Xi are owned by the same people above them, and they're all working towards one goal. It makes perfect sense, doesn't it? That's why we need to seek the truth. Says President Donald Trump said Monday that he would allow NVIDIA to sell an advanced type of computer chip used in the development of artificial intelligence to approved customers in China. There have been concerns about allowing advanced computer chips to be sold in China as it would help the country better compete against the U.S. in building out AI capabilities. That's the narrative that we continue to get told. That doesn't mean it's true. And we know for a fact that it's not true. And we're being told here. But there has also been a desire to develop the AI ecosystem with American companies such as chipmaker NVIDIA. The chip known as the H200 is not NVIDIA's most advanced product. Those chips called Blackwell and the upcoming Rubin were not part of what Trump approved. Trump said on social media that he had informed China's leader Xi Jinping about his decision, that President Xi responded positively. Well, he cares about the response positively because they're friends. That's how it works. So Trump is going to make money with this. NVIDIA is going to, the dude from NVIDIA, I can't remember his name, Wang or Zhang or whatever it is. He's going to make money from this. Xi in China is going to make money from this. And we're all going to advance the AI capabilities further. It's amazing how that works. So again, we're being told a narrative. And if you look at this news article, it would not make sense. But we don't follow the narrative. We question these things. We view these from different angles. We put bias aside and we try and figure out what the heck is going on. And when we do, and we have a better understanding, again, we don't have all the answers. We don't act and pretend like we do, but we have a better understanding of what's going on. This makes sense. It does. It just does. And with that, we get to Project 2026. The next step of Project 2025, which I believe the last I checked, they're at like 70% implemented. This is the next step for the Heritage Foundation and for the implementation of this technocratic dictatorship that they're building here in the United States. It's not long like the other one. The other one was just massively long, but there's a few things that I want to point out on this. It's policy priorities 2025 to 2026. And it's the Heritage Foundation and the Heritage Action. I can't really make it bigger, so you're just gonna have to listen to my beautiful voice. I can do a radio voice if you want to. The Heritage Foundation and Heritage Action. I'm not going to do that. It's creepy. The Heritage Foundation and Heritage Action are fighting to restore self-governance so that all Americans can live a good life. Conservatives must set the agenda, earn a mandate for the agenda, and govern accordingly. But right here it says, over the next 2 years, we will engage in Washington to dismantle the deep state. That's what they're going to... Yeah, hold on. Bring me in. Remember how we were talking earlier about the psychological warfare? They push the woke narrative, they push the immigration narrative, they push the Muslim narrative, they push the narratives because they want you to focus on it. What's one of the biggest narratives that the conservative side has been hearing for years and years and years? The deep state. I was one of those people. I used that, go back a few years, I used the term deep state too, because wasn't really paying attention. Then I started to pay attention. I started to look at it and I was like, there is no deep state. It's a made up term. If there was a deep state, that means that there's another just state that actually cares about you and wants to restore these things and fight the deep state. But we don't have that. No, what we have is just the state. The deep state is just the state. There is no deep state. There's no sides to it. But they're going to use that term, fighting the deep state, in order to implement more policy, more technocratic dictator, authoritarianism, all this stuff. They're going to use the deep state to install more of that stuff like they have been, for you to be on board with it, because we just need this right here because we got to fight the deep state. Just like we just need the ICE and National Guard and stuff walking the streets because we got to fight the immigration. And we just need this biometric surveillance system and stuff like that because we got to fight the Muslim stuff. Just like that's always the excuse. Next up on the docket is the deep state. They're going to use fighting the deep state to get you to be on board with the next authoritarian destruction that they're going to implement in this country. There is no deep state. It doesn't exist because it's just the state. That's how it goes. That's the psychological warfare. So that's why I wasn't planning on talking about it back then, but I guess the Lord said, hey, you need to bring this up because you're going to say something later. It's amazing how the Lord works. He gets all the credit. He gets all the glory. We got to keep that in mind. So when we hear them talking about the deep state, we understand they're talking about themselves. They're using the deep state for you to get on board with the same thing that the ones saying deep state, are implementing. That is the psychological warfare that's happening. This is over the next 2 years. We will engage in Washington to dismantle the deep state, and in the states to restore the family, rebuild American institutions, and restore opportunity for all. We are committed to promoting human flourishing for all Americans and championing the policies that get us here. This is just ridiculous. Heritage will advocate for America to protect its sovereignty, defend its borders, and defeat globalism. The only problem is they're inviting globalism in and installing it in order to give the illusion that they're fighting it. Just like I still get told Trump is not a globalist and is fighting the globalists, even though he's the very same person that's implementing the same globalist stuff into this country. Make it make sense. If you follow the narrative, it doesn't. If you follow the truth, it does make sense. So what are some of these policies? Again, there's not very many, which tells me that most of the heavy lifting has already been done. Now we're just, adding in the icing on the cake. Priority number 1, counter the CCP. Guys, we're right back to fighting the communists. We're right back to where we were before. Their number 1 priority for Project 2026 is counter the CCP. Yes, the very same one that Trump just agreed to sell chips to. The Chinese Communist Party is the most persistent and consequential foreign threat facing American people today. It is building a military to challenge the U.S. stealing American technology at an unprecedented rate. No, we're just handing it to them in deals now and hurting U.S. workers with predatory economic policies. America, and they tell it to you. This is what's so funny about it. This is why it's so humorous. They say it. They tell it to you. America is falling behind in this new Cold War. You can't make this up. We've gone over the history of the Cold War playbook. The entire premise was built upon a lie. The idea of the Cold War was we need more military spending and we need civilians to be on board with it because we're losing the race against Russia. when the facts were we were ahead of Russia and we just used it in order to get more military spending. They are telling it to you. They are telling you what they are doing if you're willing to see it. America is falling behind in this new Cold War. I've been saying it for a long time that they're using the Cold War playbook. And here it is. It's crazy. It is crazy when you actually see these things and know what's going on. They're taunting you. They are taunting you. Policy priority number 2, eliminate regulation, inflation, and spending. Government spending, regulations, and inflation are a tax on all Americans, especially working families who struggle to make ends meet. Prudent fiscal decisions can enable American families to flourish without politicians and bureaucrats controlling our lives. Reforming environmental and energy regulations will result in more affordable electricity and transportation and attract manufacturing back to America. This is just hilarious because we know that the tariffs are destroying family finances. The big beautiful bill has dropped corporate tax collection by 33%, but has increased tax collection for everyday Americans because they care more about protecting the corporations than they do about you. And we can go on and on and on about all the different regulations and spending and inflation that this administration is doing. And it's only making the economy 10 times worse than what it was before. And so that's just laughable to go with that. Number 3, end the border and immigration chaos. We don't even need to read this because it's basically saying the Biden administration did this and did that and caused chaos. And so now you need to support us as we try and get it out of here. Again, that's part of the play, part of the theater that we're seeing right now. And of course, they need to take away some more of our freedom and rights and all this stuff in order to take care of the immigration problem. We went over that, but that's priority number 3 for Project 2026. This one's funny. Priority number 4, ensure election integrity. The right to vote in free and fair elections is the most basic civil right. Americans can have confidence in election outcomes only if they trust the process is fair. Well, for those of us who know anything about what really goes on, we understand that elections is just a giant show. It's basically it's an illusion. It's a selection. They already know who that they're going to implement and whatnot. And so this is just another play on the whole 2020 election rigging thing. We know that they're trying to implement more biometric stuff when it comes to if you want to vote, then you have to hand over this information and stuff. So that's probably the next thing that you should be looking for when it comes to the election stuff is they're trying to do the, you need an ID to vote type of thing. They're going to take it a step further and go, well, that's not enough to prove or to verify that that's exactly who you are. So we're going to need to get more information from you. That's going to be the next step. So I'd be looking out for that. Number 5, expand education freedom, which is funny because coming from the Heritage Foundation, we know that they're putting out the Phoenix Declaration, which is the Phoenix Declaration was unveiled by the Heritage Foundation in collaboration with leading education scholars. And this has to do with revamping the entire education system in the United States and getting it on board with the Phoenix Declaration, which was designed by the Heritage Foundation. So this idea of expand education freedom ultimately means we're going to install a brand new authoritarian education indoctrination system. It's already a problem that we have now. This is going to be the next level of indoctrination that they're going to start implementing. So again, they've shown their hand when it comes to that. If you're looking for it, you'll see it. We don't necessarily know much about the Phoenix Declaration. I can't find much information on it, but we'll see what comes out in the next year. See what happens. Policy priority number 6, fight big tech abuses. You mean partner with the big tech so they can abuse us further. That's really what they mean by that. We're not even going to read that one. That's just Yeah. Number 7, put family first. Every child conceived deserves to be born to a married mother and father who will love, guide, and protect them through their lives. But family breakdown and rampant abortion tears at the soul of our country and saps it out of the strength and moral authority. Radical ideologies that deny social and biological truths about sexual embodiment, marriage, and unborn life poisons our courts, our cultures, and our laws. So this is utilizing the pursuit against the woke agenda, which again, nobody here agrees that the woke agenda is good. We don't think that at all. We just know that they're weaponizing it for something else. And it seems that that's going to be priority number 7 on this. And they've got 2 more. Policy priority number 8, root out the deep state. We just went over that. Expect them to start putting more authoritarianism thumbs on top of you in order to go against this deep state. Again, you'll accept it and you'll be behind it because we got to get rid of the swamp, drain that swamp, right? That's what we've been told. And then number 9, unleash American energy. Ultimately, we know that has to do with feeding the AI monster that they're building in this, which will require energy. Not to mention, to go along with that, I don't know if you guys saw this video clip. I don't have it with me. I just don't have it with me. But there's a interview or something like that a couple days ago where Trump confirmed what we've talked about for the past few years, how 5G and 6G technology can be used as digital surveillance. I've shown videos of this stuff. This was 2-3 years ago, something like that. Where if you have 5G on your router, they can bounce signals off your walls and they can get a 3D rendering and AI prediction and surveillance scan of you interacting in a room based off of the frequencies coming off of your router. 6G allows them to go through walls with that technology. And 6G, we've talked about this as well, allows them to utilize human energy to power electronics. And so when they're talking about unleash American energy, get ready for the 6G revolution, which is going to utilize human body energy along with whatever other energy plans that they have that they plan on doing. So that's it, though. That is Project 2026. So the massive 10,000 page document for Project 2025, they're about 70% implemented with it. And now we've got Project 2026 where there's only 9 points and all of them are pointing to basically change this country into something dystopian. They put it in a way that's supposed to be positive. And so if you don't know what's going on, when you read that, you go, well, this is good. This is nice. I'm behind this. But for those of us who have looked behind the curtain and we see the dark, nasty goo that this stuff crawls out from, we understand that it ain't good. It ain't good at all. So, yeah. Crazy stuff, man. Kevin Lewis says, are you power in the Matrix? Yeah, well, that's the thing is you look at something like The Matrix, which came out in 1999, a lot of the stuff that they're doing or that they talked about in The Matrix is actually what they're doing in real life right now. I did a comparison video on that. Man, I haven't done one of those in a while. I need to do another one when I have time. The Showtime episodes, I talked about the Matrix movie and how it compares to real life and false religion and stuff like that. That's on... I have it on YouTube, I think. I know it's on Rumble for sure. But go check that out if you haven't. Because that 6G body energy stuff, turning humans into batteries, is something that's described in The Matrix. It's fascinating. So, crazy stuff, though. This world, man, there's a lot of stuff happening. Good to be back, though. Glad to be back on so we can talk about this stuff and go through things like this. Just, again, guys, pursue truth. Don't fall for the narratives. Don't fall for the psychological warfare. Don't let yourself deceive yourself. Don't let them use that personal deception against you. And always go for the truth. Live the truth. Seek the truth. Even if it hurts. It's going to sting. You're going to lose friends. You're going to lose family. There's going to be some times that you're going to be left standing alone, but it doesn't matter because you still have Christ standing next to you. And that's all that matters. You have an audience of one. Everything that we do is for him. And when we pursue truth, we may be left alone here in the physical, but we know that Jesus Christ is here with the spiritual, and that's all that matters. But if you don't have Jesus Christ, then you don't have anything. You don't have life. You got nothing. You have no hope for what's coming on, for what's coming. And so that's why you need to give your life to Christ. And he makes it as simple as ABC. A is you admit that you're a sinner, the act of repentance, the changing of mind, metanoia, turning from self to Christ. Something that we all need to do in order to truly believe in Jesus Christ. Through repentance, through that changing of mind, you're turning from self. Everything is about self-desire. It's about me. I can do this. I can do this. I can save myself. If I just do this, if I just do that. And Christ says, nope, leave that all behind. Leave yourself behind and give your life to me. And it's through that metanoia that allows true belief in Jesus Christ. We believe that Jesus Christ is the one and only begotten Son of God, that he came down 100% man, 100% God, the God-man, the one and only, and he lived the perfect, sinless life. He's the only one to do so, which means he was the only one qualified to carry the sins of the world upon his shoulders, carried my sins upon his shoulder to the cross, where he took my place upon that cross, and he gave his life for me by being crucified and dying upon that cross. But because there is power in the blood of Jesus Christ, and he did exactly as he said he would, exactly as he promised he would, and exactly as he prophesied he would. He defeated death and rose again on the third day. For all who believe in him shall not perish, but live forever in his presence and in his glory. Again, when we place our faith in him, when we place our belief in Jesus Christ, we are placing our belief in Christ Jesus and the work upon the cross that he did, the finished work upon the cross, where he spilled his blood, he defeated death, and he rose again. And the last words that he said were tetelestai, it is finished, which means there's nothing we can do to earn that. We must place our faith in Christ and the finished work and spilled blood upon that cross. And C, when we receive salvation, we are indwelt with the Holy Spirit. We are sealed by the Holy Spirit, and we are given an incredible supernatural gift of prayer that allows us direct access to the throne room of God. We get to go to our Heavenly Father at any moment of any day, and he will hear us. We say, Lord God, thank you for this day. Thank you for allowing all of us to come together in fellowship, even though we are in different places all across the world right now. God, we thank you for allowing us to come together into fellowship and to go over these crazy things that are happening in the world and ultimately focus on the salvation and the glory of your Son, Jesus Christ. Lord, there's many of us that are alone with nobody around us. No churches. Some don't even have family. Not many friends. And we seek some way to be able to fellowship with others who believe the way that we do, who have hope in Jesus Christ, that are actively trying to seek the truth of what's going on. Give us the ability to put aside our own desires and our own bias and to seek the truth no matter what. Give us that strength. And give us the boldness to speak the name of Jesus in the darkest of places in this world. As this world grows darker, we need to be more bold and on fire for the Lord than ever. Give us that boldness. Give us the opportunity. And we thank you, Lord Jesus, for coming and giving your life so that we may live. Help us through this time right now until you come and take us out of here. And we say, Lord Jesus, please come. Maranatha. Amen. Amen. Crazy stuff in this world. Oh, man. I've been trying to keep up with everything going on. I'll admit there's been a couple days where I fell behind that I just could not keep up. So I know there's some stuff that I missed, and hopefully I'll be able to poke around and find it and pull it out. All right. Let's see. What do we got with some of these questions? I got a few of them here. Patrick Starr, question. Do you know if many of the big Calvary Chapel pastors are just industry plants? Apparently, a lot of them are also former veterans. Seems odd. Patrick, that would be something that I would have to actually go and investigate each one. I don't have enough information, and that's not something I can necessarily just broad sweep with. I know there's been a lot of talk recently that's making waves and stuff like that, where there's been people who have come out and said all Calvary chapels are bad. And then there's other ones that said, well, for those who can't find a good church, just find a Calvary chapel and you're good to go type of thing. And we know for a fact that both those statements are incorrect. We know that that's not true. Not all Calvary chapels are bad. And we know that not all Calvary chapels are good either. Unfortunately, Calvary Chapel is, I've always said it this way. Whatever you think of Chuck Smith and stuff like that, I'm not a personal fan of Chuck Smith for several reasons, but I'm not here to go in depth on that. Chuck Smith created a bittersweet monster where at the time there's a lot of people that came to a true belief in the Lord when that whole Jesus Revolution thing started. But at the same time, the way that it went, it was very worldly and it was going to fall apart. And so it's just one of those things where it's like Billy Graham, it's one of those things where we know who Billy Graham was. There was a lot of people that did find the true Jesus through him, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we're on board with what Billy Graham was doing. Everybody knows that I am not a Billy Graham endorser at all. I think we should stay far away from the guy. But the same thing could be said of Calvary Chapel. Now, does that mean that all Calvary Chapels are bad? No. Does that mean they're all good? No. Again, I listen to Pastor Jeff, who's Calvary Chapel, but I'm not there because it's a Calvary Chapel. I'm there because it's Jeff. And so I'm one of those people where it's like, I care more about the pastor and how he teaches, what he believes, and how he runs a church, as opposed to what name's on it. If I happen to find a church that was a Baptist that's really good at it, like, what's his face? Wow. His name just slipped my mind. Charles Lawson, he runs a Baptist church and stuff like that. There's a lot of Baptist churches that are going the wrong way, but I like Charles Lawson and what he does. Do I agree with everything? No. But I think he's the right man for the job, just like Jeff Solwood for Calvary Chapel. Those are two churches and two pastoring styles on opposite ends of the spectrum, but I believe that they're both being watched over and both following the Lord in what they do, and it has nothing to do with the name. So with that in mind, getting to your question, Patrick, regarding plants in Calvary Chapel, I think that there certainly are one. I will admit, I've said it before, I believe Jack Hibbs is a plant. I believe he's on the payroll. I believe he's there doing things that well, we'll just leave it at that. I believe that he's firmly planted. I do think that there's other Calvary Chapel pastors that are doing just that too, that follow in line with that, just like I think there's ones in Baptist churches and Methodist churches and all that as well. So that's my perspective on that. Oh, did I hurt somebody's feelings in the chat? Wow. Gotta love those people. Oh my goodness. Okay, man, if you got such a problem with church on Sunday, go have church on the day that you want to do. Go for it. Have fun. If you're on a crusade about it, this ain't the place to do it. Catch you later. Sayonara. But yeah, so Patrick, I do believe that there's pastoral plants in Calvary Chapels, just like I think there's some in Baptist churches and stuff like that. I think a lot of Calvary Chapel pastors, while not plants, are ones who are deceived. And through ignorant deception, I think there's a lot that are ignorant of it. They don't necessarily know. Through ignorant deception, they are leading their churches down the wrong way as well, like the modern church is doing. That's another conversation that could take another 2 hours to talk about. But That's my perspective on that. Let's see here. Charlotte Marshall. Can we see Elon Musk's Starlinks or whatever he has up there for internet and heaven knows what else with the naked eye? I see star-like objects on clear nights, but they're closer and bigger. There are some Starlink satellites that you can see just from looking up. It has to be the right perspective, but Starlink satellites are sit much lower than the regular satellites. So yes, you can see them. How can you know for sure? I don't know, but I do know that you can see them. Even Musk has confirmed that. Antonio, question: do you think a pastor's incorrect political view will determine if God is pleased with them or not, and if they are saved, or is it a lack of discernment? I think it's important to distinguish. Your political understanding has nothing to do with your salvation. Don't be like Jack Hibbs and try to attach them like that. No, it's your salvation is based solely in placing your faith in Jesus Christ, his finished work on the cross, and his spilled blood. Simple as that. I do believe that God is not very pleased with people in pastoral positions. I'll say it that way. Just because you're in a pastoral position doesn't mean you're a pastor, but I do believe that there's people in those that God is not happy with who have teached heretically, like Jack Hibbs. I think God is not very happy with Jack Hibbs because of how he's attached politics and political standing to salvation. There's other pastors out there that I don't believe God is happy with because not of the political view itself, but how they use it to manipulate scripture and to psychologically manipulate the church to follow along with it. I think that's the thing. There are some who know what they're doing, and there's some that are ignorantly deceived. And I think the figuring that out is a case-by-case basis. I can't give you a percentage on that, but I think that's it. That's my perspective on it, on that one. Let's see here. Country Darling question: how many big pastors do you think are on the government payroll? Again, I would have to look into each individual one. You look at somebody like Lori. What's his name? What's first name? Not Chuck Lorre. No, is it Chuck Lorre? The dude from Harvest. I can't remember his name. You look at somebody like that, you know for a fact he's on the payroll. Greg Laurie, thank you. Greg Laurie. You look at somebody like that, you know he's a part of that. You look at somebody like Franklin Graham, even though he's not technically a pastor, he kind of fills that position. You know he is. You look at some of these other ones. Rob McCoy, I think he's firmly in that picture of being paid by the government. There's other ones out there. Jack Hibbs, again, I think he is. I don't have proof for that. So when anybody says, provide proof of that, I don't have proof for it. I'm just going off of intuition and evidence that I've gained. But I think there's a lot of them out there. I can't necessarily give you a number or a percentage on that, though. Again, look at a lot of the churches that are hooked up to things like TPUSA and stuff like that. That's usually a good starting point. Country Darling, and will you give names, examples? Want to see if I'm wrong. Hey, I kind of did that without even reading your second question. There you go. Hopefully that helps. Before I even say anything, I want to look at this real quick. Give me 1 second, people. Dead air. Yeah, we'll just leave that one alone. Okay. We'll just leave that alone. Lori S. question: what's up with the world's largest Hindu idol being built in North Carolina? Well, there was one that was built in Texas last year. The monkey god. I can't remember his name. Are they building one in North Carolina too? I mean, they've been building religious figures in this country for a long time. They're just kind of putting spotlights on them right now. So I'd have to look at it, Lori, though. But yeah, they just built that monkey guy last year or the year before that here in Texas and stuff like that. They build those things all over the place. I'd need to look at it, though. Proton Girl question. Heard that Pete Hegseth declared that the Monroe Doctrine is in full force. Your thoughts? I'd have to look, Proton. I'm a little behind. I'll see if I have an answer for you on Tuesday. Give me a minute to go and take a look at that. Yeah, we'll just stay that. So hold on to that one. Take it, put it in a little box, little bow on it, put it in your pocket, and we'll see what I got on Tuesday. Let's see here. Lori asked question, could they possibly be spraying the skies to make a screen to project blue beam after we get raptured? Spraying the skies doesn't really have anything to do with hologram stuff. Yeah, so the sky spray, which we're not going to get into because that's a long conversation. That wouldn't be involved with Project Bluebeam. That's something different. Rose Manning. Oh boy. I'm going to make this one simple. What do you think of Israel? I'm a new listener. Take Israel, and it's two sides of it. There's Christian Zionism, political Zionism. Christian Zionism is biblical support of the Jewish people in God's land. That's not what a lot of people think it is and try and turn it into when it comes to political Zionism. Political Zionism is the belief that just because we're Christians and we're told in Scripture to support God's land and God's people, we are to support their government and the decisions that they make and the atrocities and globalism that they participate in. We do not follow that here on this channel. We are not political Zionists. We actually tend to stand against political Zionism. Not tend to, we do. We stand against political Zionism. I call their stuff out all the time. But we do support God's land and God's people in the biblical sense that we are not the same. The church has not replaced Israel. God's not done with Israel and the Jewish people. And the time of Jacob's trouble, the 70th week of Daniel, which happens in the day of the Lord, which happens post-rapture, is going to be a time for the Jewish people who are blind and wretched, wicked men right now. That's going to be their time to turn towards the true Jesus Christ. That's how we view it. In my opinion, that's the correct and biblical sense to do it. Two separate entities. Biblical understanding of God's people and God's land, and not standing with the political Zionism of the corrupt government and globalists involved with it. Which, if you want to get further into it, I have a video on it called, what is it? It's the two spectrums. I think it's spectrums, which reveals that the synagogue of Satan is actually the ones behind political Zionism, which they're not true Jews at all. They're Edomites. They're the fake Jews, the synagogue of Satan. And so that's why it's important to distinguish the two, the biblical and then the fake political. And so that's where we stand here on this channel. And I think it's important that we understand that, we establish that, and we view the news and biblical reading through that. That's very key. So we're not replacement and we're not against God's people, but yet we're not falling for this idea that most of the prophecy channels are doing, where unequivocal, unquestionable support of what the state of Israel is doing. Both are wrong, in my opinion. And I think both are wrong biblically. And so hopefully that answers your question in a very short way. We just don't have time to get deeper into it. Last but not least, and we've gone a whole week without Peanut Gallery and her question. So let's give her the attention she requires here. Peanut Gallery, is it true that sharks are like dogs? They only bite when you touch their... And that's going to be it for tonight. Thank you for that. We're not... Really, Stephanie? Come on now. Yeah, that's it. So we're just going to leave it there. All right, guys. Thank you for joining me today. Good to be back. I'm definitely glad to be back. And yeah, it's just going a week feels like forever. So glad to be back. Definitely glad to be here. I don't know the movie, Stephanie, but I'm still not going to finish it. We're just going to leave it there. Usual spiel. If you guys can, like, share, subscribe, get this out to as many people as you can. It's not about views, not about butts and seats. It is about getting the gospel out to people and getting warning to people. That's why we do this. That's the whole reason for this. And liking, sharing, and subscribing does help reach those people. So if you guys can do me a solid and like, share, subscribe, I would certainly appreciate it. Also, if you guys can follow Rumble and Telegram, those are, I just read a comment and I didn't mean to. Now I'm all thrown off. Make sure you guys follow Rumble and Telegram if you guys can. If I'm booted off YouTube, we'll be live streaming over on Rumble, and then Telegram post updates, announcements, and other little things here and there that I can't necessarily put in video format. You guys are bananas. So make sure you guys follow over there. If you don't like Rumble and Telegram, I completely understand. Just make sure you guys follow on the website or bookmark the website. It's your one-stop shop to stay up to date on everything that's going on with the Wretched Watchmen channel. You'll find the latest podcasts, announcements, live streams, the free book to download is there, and all the other things that you want to know is going on. So make sure you guys go ahead and bookmark the website. And last but not least, if you guys like to support this channel and what I got going on, I got donation links down below. I really need to stop reading the chat. CashApp, Venmo, and GiveSendGo, those links are down below. Thank you guys for your support and your donations and your prayers and encouragement. You guys are incredible. You guys are the ones that make this run. Again, I'm one of those people where I think ministry and everything should be free when involved with it. And you guys obviously believe that as well, because you guys are the ones that make this all free and makes everything run with this. And I'm so incredibly grateful and thankful for you guys. You guys are also the ones that helped save my health and helped me get out of that place I was at before that probably would have killed me if I stayed there much longer. So thank you guys for your blessings and your support. You guys are incredible. I thank you guys, and I thank the Lord for you guys. So, all right, guys, that's it. That's all I got. Tomorrow is Sunday. Make sure you get your wretched, heathenic, misfit booties to church tomorrow, whether online, in person, doesn't matter, as long as it's a Bible-believing, Christ-following church. And if we're still here by Tuesday, I'll see you guys then. Peace out. Maranatha.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.